I had someone tell me once that they don't care for Chicago's cuisine, and I didn't really know what to make of that because I've never considered Chicago as having an entire cuisine. They have a few select foods that they're known for, so I thought we could take a look at a few of the items that they have introduced to the world. This one is actually from the suburb of Downers Grove, but I figured that it's close enough to Chicago to count. The famous Sara Lee Corporation began as a popular bakery chain in the 1950s, founded by Charles Lubin and named after his daughter Sara Lee. He introduced the concept of frozen bakery goods to the American public with his Sara Lee frozen cheesecake. He then expanded to other baked goods and incorporated the ready-to-use foil pans. Today, the corporation is divided into two companies, one for North American operations, renamed Hillshire Brands, and the other for international beverage and bakery businesses, named D.E. Master Blenders 1753. One of the things that Chicago is known for is its deep dish pizza. There are conflicting stories as to the who and when the pizza was created. According to the descendants of Saverio Rosati, their restaurant, called Rosati's Authentic Chicago Pizza, came up with the deep dish in 1926. Some say that Ike Sewell invented deep dish pizza at his restaurant, Pizzeria Uno, but that was in 1943. Regardless of the who and when, the where was definitely the Windy City. Oscar Mayer was a German immigrant with a background as a butcher boy, so he and his two brothers established the Oscar F. Mayer and Brothers shop on the north side of Chicago. Their meat products included specialties from their home country, so they were popular in the German neighborhoods of the city. They expanded into bacon and hot dogs. Then, in 1906, a book was published about the horrors of the meatpacking industry, and consumers became more hesitant when it came to buying meat, so a new federal meat inspection agency was created. Oscar Mayer was one of the first companies to join in the program in order to assure their customers that their products were safe. In 1929, they took it a step further and started putting a yellow band around their hot dogs, so consumers would be certain that they were getting an Oscar Mayer product. Oscar Mayer may not have invented the hot dog, but he did come up with the idea for branding a meat product. Speaking of hot dogs, you can't talk about Chicago cuisine without mentioning the Chicago dog. Many immigrants from Germany were arriving in the Midwest in the 1800s, and they brought with them the tastes of their homeland, such as sausages, but the food item that became widely popular with most groups was the Frankfurter. It was seen as a portable and inexpensive meal. Around the turn of the century, another group of German immigrants began arriving, this time Jewish Germans. Many of them were on the bottom tier of the socioeconomic ladder, so they turned to hot dog carts as a way of earning a living. As previously mentioned, around this same time, consumers became more aware of meatpacking practices, and they saw the Jewish kosher tradition of preparing food to be cleaner, so the all-beef hot dog became the preferred type. A few years later, along came a Polish-born immigrant named Sam Rosen who introduced the poppy seed bun. Many hot dog vendors also owned vegetable stands, and they started experimenting with toppings. Then the Great Depression hit, and hot dogs, even as cheap as they were, became too expensive for the consumers to be able to fill up on. Vendors started adding all of the vegetables to the hot dogs to make them more nutritious. At that time, they were called Depression sandwiches, and they sold for a nickel. The vendors experimented with the combination of vegetables, and finally settled on short peppers, mustard, pickle, relish, onion, tomato, and celery salt as the best one, and the Chicago dog was born. Many people have tried to take the credit for inventing the Italian beef sandwich, so it's hard to say exactly who came up with the idea first. What we do know is that it originated in Chicago, and it was mostly a regional delicacy until word started spreading, both from people who had moved out of the city and by celebrities such as Jay Leno, who would talk about the sandwich on camera. We also know that its origin was due to trying to make cheaper meat cuts more palatable and to stretch them further. By slow roasting the tougher, less desirable cuts of meat, they could make it more tender, and by slicing the meat into thin layers, more people could be fed by the roast than if it had been sliced into thick slices. Today, there are restaurants such as Portillo's that will ship Italian beef to your home if you can't make it there in person. Cracker Jacks are considered one of the earliest, if not the first, junk foods invented, and their history is interwoven with America's favorite pastime of baseball, thanks to stadiums selling the food and for being mentioned in the song Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Recipes for popcorn mixed with peanuts and molasses were known as early as the 1860s, but a German immigrant named Frederick Ruckheim figured out that if you added a little bit of oil to the mixture, it would keep it from sticking together. In 1896, the first official batch was produced under the name Cracker Jacks, which was a slang term at the time that meant something of high quality. Ruckstein partnered with Henry Eckstein, who came up with the triple-proof packaging, which was one of the first wax-sealed cardboard containers. They then added coupons that could be redeemed for things like sewing machines, but they realized shortly after that appealing to young children would be a better approach, so they started putting small prizes in the box. That continued for decades until they started putting terrible paper prizes like riddles and jokes in the box. Eventually they replaced those as well, this time with an app to play games with a phone. I think they need to bring the prizes back. Twinkies were invented in Schiller Park, so it's close enough to Chicago, right? Canadian-born baker James Alexander Dewar noticed that the machines used to make shortcakes sat dormant when strawberries were out of season, so he conceived of the idea of using the pans and equipment to make a sponge cake filled with banana cream. When World War II came around, banana imports pretty much stopped, so they switched to vanilla cream, and that is how we know it today. The name Twinkie came from a billboard in St. Louis for twinkle toe shoes. If you can think of any other foods that were invented in Chicago, leave a comment, and if you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up or share this on social media. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I remain stuck in the cornfield.